So we have a few things that we need to do before we move into our next session. The first is that I would just ask if you can all kind of squeeze in, because we've got people who are standing at the back waiting for seats. Everybody's coming back from lunch, and we're going to need to have all the seats we can. Dr. Yin's got lots of room up here. Nobody wants to sit next to the doctor. All right, is Vicki Legge here from Pinnacle? Is Vicki in the room? Have you guys all gone and thanked at least one of our exhibitors or sponsors? Hands up if you've thanked at least one exhibitor or sponsor. Christina, you are a rock star. Thank you for that. I need everybody before the conference is over, make sure you stop and thank at least one of our exhibitors or sponsors, because if it wasn't for them, you'd have to pay. You know? So you gotta say thank you for that. The other people I want you to try and thank, you may have seen some people in modeling the very stylish black healthcare conference shirts. I've got one here in front of me, Miss Janet. Give us a wave, Miss J. Yes, so these are the hardworking volunteers who've helped make this conference happen. So if you see someone in a black shirt that says Healthcare Conference, Lynn is modeling one over here as well. I want you to try and make sure you thank them as well. We can get the speakers for our next session to come on up to the front. We've got Dr. Hobday, Dr. Reuters coming back, Dr. Scott David, and we've got Miss Tamara Worms-Riley and Dr. Keelan Fox. So if I can get my next batch of speakers to come on up. All right, so a couple questions. Who has gone and checked out the health check station? Anybody? Nobody? One person, two people, three, four, excellent. All right. Now there is also some really funky looking scale type thing just outside the door, which I have been avoiding at all costs, but it looks really cool, so you might want to check that out. It's not that cool? It's okay. Oh, a little wave. I'm getting a little wave. The royal wave in the second row. Don't forget, you've also got your flu shot. It's a great opportunity to get your flu shot. It's not there? No. Okay. And here comes Miss Vicki. Have you guys all gone and entered this draw for the Super Duper Fitbit? It's too late. That's going to be chalked up as a missed opportunity if you haven't already done so. But I'm going to get Miss Vicki and Taylor from Pinnacle Media to come on up and draw for the Fitbit. How are you? Good. That's
good. So we've got this Fitbit Charge 2.
Come up here. Come up a little closer.
Yeah. So all the people that entered our contest downloaded our new app for Cayman Health. So their names are in here, and Taylor's going to draw.
Actually, let's.
Okay, yeah.
okay, so my name's not in there.
Oh, no.
The Auditor General was here earlier. So. Casey and
Yeah. Okay, Casey and James.
Wait, let me. Can you come up so I can take a photo? Hold it in a little bit. Can you move it in? There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to bring everybody up to date on Cayman Health, which is why we're here today, we have three things to tell you about. One is our Cayman Health app. And if you didn't download it and enter the contest, you can still download the app, and we hope you will, because it has everything in there that you will need from the printed copy. We have it on Google Play and the Apple App Store. So no matter what kind of phone you have, you can still get it. The second thing I wanted to just bring everybody up to date on is we're having a fabulous event experience. You may have gotten a brochure about this yesterday in your package. And this will be presented by Cayman Health January 20th at the Ark in Camana Bay. So we hope that everyone here will come to that. It'll be completely different than anything else that's been on the island. We're going to focus on the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. We're going to feature top doctors and healers, wellness workshops, presentations and screenings, exercise and yoga with top instructors. They're actually going to have little classes there. We'll have massage and meditation, healing therapists, healthy food tastings and samplings, beauty techniques and products, hair and makeup, style and fashion. We're trying to get the whole gamut in here for the whole person. Demonstrations, musical entertainment. So I hope you'll put that on your calendar for the new year, and you can attend or be a partner. The third thing is the new printed version of Cayman Health will be out at the Live Well event. So there's still time to be included in that if you haven't signed up. So we really hope that you'll come to some of these things. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Vicki, and thanks to Pinnacle Media for your continued support of the conference. And Casey Ann, are you going to get your Fitbit out and start counting your steps? Excellent. Well done. Well done. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Everybody was here and now they snuck out. Oh, dear. Now, I'm sure they will make their way back in. So how was lunch? Good? Lunch was good? Yes? It was healthy, right? Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I mentioned to the session earlier that the lunch was sponsored by our ministry, the Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture, and Housing. So you're welcome. I hope you enjoyed. Yes? And I'm going to embarrass my ministry team now and ask all the ministry staff who are in the house to stand up and give everybody a wave. Where's Natasha's the best at this, but I don't think she's come back in yet. Is she? Oh, there she is. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we are hoping everybody will filter their way back in because our next session is going to be awesome. There's really no other way to describe what the magic is going to happen up here on the stage. We have assembled this expert panel, and we've reached out to them, the conference organizing team reached out to them and said, we would like you to come and tell us what you think are the top 3 most important facts and the top 3 myths around nutrition. And we've given each of them 10 minutes to make their case in terms of the top 3 things they think everybody should know are facts, and the top 3 things, the myth busting. And after they've all had a go, we're going to open it up to you guys. All right? So what I want you to do is make a note of the questions, because we put quite a bit of time aside for some interactive discussion at the end. But I think, and I had a sneak peek of a couple of the submissions, and I think we're going to have some really thought-provoking presentations happening this afternoon. So the panelists have opted that they will deliver from the panel table, and I'm going to introduce them each in turn and give them each their 10 minutes to make their case. All right, so first up, and welcome back to the panel, Dr. Reuter. We have the foodie physician. For those of you who missed last night, you missed out. As I mentioned earlier, though, the presentations will be up on the website. So if you didn't manage to catch Dr. Reuter's presentation last night, make sure you keep an eye on the website so you can catch up on what you missed. But she's a board-certified emergency medicine physician, a trained chef, a cookbook author, and founder of the website The Foodie Physician. She's a contributing writer, recipe developer, and health and wellness expert for several national magazines and websites, and does regular TV segments on the South Florida News. When she's not working in the ER, she can usually be found cooking up new recipes in her kitchen. Dr. Reuter has a passion for cooking and wants to give people the power to take control of their health, starting in the kitchen. And with no further ado, Dr. Reuter, your top 3 facts and myths.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So if any of you did come to my speech last night, there's definitely a lot of overlap. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about was in this speech last night. So number one of my most important facts, cook at home as much as possible. I'm a big proponent of cooking at home. It's one of the best ways to follow a nutritious diet. When you cook at home, obviously you are controlling the ingredients that you use, you're controlling the cooking methods. You can use healthy cooking methods like grilling and roasting and braising instead of deep frying, as opposed to restaurant food. You know, a lot of restaurant food is full of a lot of calories, hidden sodium, fat, sugar. You don't really know what you're getting. Plus, portion sizes have increased so much over the past few decades. So that's my number 1 biggest tip, cook at home. Number 2, eat in moderation and stay active. So I'm actually not a very big fan of drastic diets. I think, cutting out entire food groups, I think it leads to unhealthy cravings and binge eating. I'm more about eating in moderation, enjoying the occasional splurge, and portion control and balance. And the other part of that is also staying active, because basically to lose weight, you have to expend more energy than you're taking in. And it gets harder as we get older because our metabolic rates decrease, the amount of protein in our body decreases, and you just have to basically control your calorie intake and make sure you stay active. Number 3, plan ahead. I think one of the big reasons that we make unhealthy food choices is when we're busy and we just don't have the time. A lot of times if you work a long day, you come home, you don't really have time to cook, so that's when you end up stopping at the fast food restaurant. So I'm a big menu planner. That's one of the tips I give people all the time. Basically, menu planning means, for example, on the weekend, you take like an hour to plan all of your meals for the rest of the week. A lot of days will cook enough portions to last me for 2 days, so I know I'll have leftovers for the next day. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll roast a whole chicken, for example, for dinner, and then the next day I'll use that chicken to make tacos, and the next day I'll use that chicken to add to pasta or salad. So I'm like planning ahead. I also use my freezer a lot, ever since I had my daughter especially. I freeze a lot of my meals. That way when you come home from work and you're tired, you have a healthy meal you could just take out of the freezer and eat. So those are my top 3 facts. Now, some common myths. First one is that all fat is bad. Fat used to be the enemy, and that kind of led to a whole bunch of low-fat and fat-free products at the grocery store, which aren't always really that great for you. When you take the fat out of a product, you usually have to replace it with something to get the same flavor and consistency, and a lot of times that ends up being sugar. So a lot of times fat-free products can end up having more calories than the original product did. There are also a lot of fats that are good for us. There's healthy fats and there's not so healthy fats. Unsaturated fats in general have a lot of health benefits, especially omega-3 fatty acids, very important for a wide variety of systems, but especially for our brain and for our hearts. So that's the number 1 myth for me. Number 2, a lot of people think frozen fruits and vegetables aren't as healthy as fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's definitely a myth, because actually frozen fruits and vegetables are frozen at the peak of ripeness, which is also their nutritional peak, when they have the most nutrients in them. And they're flash frozen and it retains all those nutrients. So I'm a big fan of frozen fruits and vegetables. I think they're also very economical. You just want to make sure when you're buying frozen fruits and vegetables that you buy plain, because a lot of times they sell them with these creamy sauces like ranch sauce or Caesar, and they can have a lot of sodium and fat in them, so you just have to be careful with that. So that is that one. And then number 3, juicing is a big trend now. So myth for me is that juices are a good meal replacement. And I'm not saying that juices are bad. I love juice, but it's not necessarily the best to replace a meal because, as I said in my speech last night, you want to try to choose whole fruit as much as possible because when you juice, you're actually leaving the pulp aside and you're just getting the juice. So you're leaving out the fiber basically, which is what keeps you feeling full when you eat a fruit. I definitely prefer smoothies to juices because with smoothies you can actually add in a lot of satiating ingredients like Greek yogurt, almond butter, peanut butter, chia seeds, and these are all foods that are rich in like protein or healthy fats or fiber, and that's going to help you keep you feeling full for a longer time. Okay, and I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Reuter. So we've got our first 3 facts and our first 3 myths on the table. Before we move on to our next speaker, I need to have 2 people, the owners of vehicles with license plates 121089 and 135338. And you haven't won a Fitbit. You need to move your cars because they're parked on the side road and they're blocking some people who need to get their cars out. So again, that's 121089 and 135338. And this is when everybody starts looking around to see who's leaving the room. All right, so if either of those are your license plate or your friends, please ask them if they wouldn't mind please going and moving their vehicles. Okay, moving on to our next panelist. It's Dr. Scott David. Dr. David has dedicated his medical practice to assisting his patients in obtaining and maintaining optimal health and wellness through restorative medicine, non-surgical bariatric medicine, hormone restoration therapy, and aesthetic medicine. Upon completing medical school at New York College of Osteopathic Medicine in 1992, Dr. David held his internship at University of Buffalo, New York, and his initial residency in emergency medicine at Albany Medical Center in New York. Dr. David has served as an attending physician in hospitals throughout New York, Maine, and New Jersey, including Atlantic City Medical Center, Jersey Shore University Medical Center, St. Luke's Medical Center, and Community Medical Center. Dr. David has obtained his 2nd board certification through the American Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine. And over the past 7 years, he has held the role of Medical Director of Restorative Health Alliance, which is a worldwide virtual online telemedicine practice. For the past 5 years, he has also been the director of the Anti-Aging and Restorative Program at the Da Vinci Wellness Center here in Grand Cayman. And during this time, Dr. David has created personalized treatment plans for men, women, and teens seeking to optimize their health and improve their quality of life through weight loss management, nutritional counseling, preventative medical care, and restorative medicine. Please welcome Dr. Scott David with his 3 myths and facts.
Thank you. Okay, so real quickly, I thought I had an hour, and then I found out I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to talk really, really quickly like the New Yorker that I am. It's funny that you have 2 ER doctors side by side. So it sort of says, when you don't pay attention to your diet, you wind up in the ER, and then we have to figure out what's going on with you. One of the things real quickly is everything that you've heard in all the conferences, everything I'm going to say, and everything everybody else on the panel is going to say is fake news, okay? I worked at Atlantic City. I know Trump. It's fake news, all of it, okay? One of the things, though, is if you'll sort of go with me, is you already are thinking that, okay? Dr. Ravi went through all of the fats and the carbs, and don't eat that, don't eat that. In the back of your mind, you say, this guy is full of it, okay? I don't believe it. I'm going next door, and I'm going to get some carbs and chocolate and see what kind of brioche they have down the street. So we all don't believe what we're being told. So these facts and myths are kind of cool, and I thought that would be a good idea. But just think about it. Most of the stuff I'm telling you, as soon as I say the sentence, whether you think it's real or not, you're automatically saying, I don't care. I'm drinking coconut oil, okay? So one of the first fact I want to talk about is it's okay to be a hunter-gatherer. We have all these paleo CrossFit people that if you don't move out of their way, they'll pick you up and throw you. But the thing is you have to be careful to what you carry your food in. These guys are a good example. BPA, okay, is a xenoestrogen. It is responsible, in my opinion, for why most of the men today are becoming effeminate. Okay, we eat everything in plastic, and the reality is 25 years ago, testosterone levels were not as low as they are now. 35-year-old guys now have testosterone equal to 65-year-old men. And the main reason why is because estrogen causes that, and it is something with BPA, all right? So if it says BPA free, you can guess it. Otherwise, if somewhere it'll say recyclable number 3 and 7, that means it has BPA. It's bad stuff. There's another thing called triclosan, okay? And triclosan is an antibiotic and preservative that's in soaps, toothpaste, things like that. It's a thyroid killer, all right? And it's basically just wipe out your thyroid. So if your skin is bad, your hair is bad, your nails are bad, you're constipated and you're foggy and you're gaining weight, and your doctor's saying, listen, your thyroid's okay, chances are you could do that. And you could actually get these levels if you wanted to. Second fact, French fries, barbecues, crunchy things, yummy, yummy, but they're all killing you, okay? But they're not killing you for what everybody else was saying, all of the basically high fat content, things like that. When you make that beautiful barbecued, whatever, and I'm a vegan, so it's a little bit different because I haven't had meat in 20 years. So, but basically when we're frying stuff, broiling stuff, grilling stuff, we make these chemicals. One is called a heterocyclic amine, one is called a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, and one is called acrylamide, which is basically from potatoes. So the reality is that these are carcinogens, okay? So if you look and you read in some of these crazy nutritional articles that I read, they basically say, just don't heat it up too much. Just make it cooked, but don't make it crispy. And most of us will push the little 4-year-old out of the way to get that little crunchy French fry on the bottom of the bag. And the reality is that's the one that's going to get you, okay? There's also something called advanced glycation products. Those are the ones that basically you get on the brown grilling and the barbecue. Those guys are really good at causing diabetes. And if you watch NASCAR, like I am, and you see everybody in the stands, they're just these huge cruise ship wannabe kind of patients. They're basically living on fried deep foods and barbecue. And it's a big problem for those reasons. And that's a fact. You can't really argue that. Another fact, kind of interesting being ER, arsenic, okay? Arsenic is bad. It used to be a good way of killing people. We used to put it in medications years and years ago. But basically, as little bit of 100 milligrams, you'll be dead in an hour, okay? And then they can get, ACI to try to figure out why. But basically, it's also at low doses an immunotoxin, okay? That means it wipes out your immune system. And if you ever notice, there's some people that just are, like in my wife's word, fragile. They're not as healthy. They're that poor stock. They get the colds all the time. And immunotoxin is something that could be a cause of that, right? So arsenic, where does it come from? Well, 2 causes. One is rice. A lot of the rice, and again, Americans think we do everything the best, but most of the rice that's grown in the southern aspect of North America is in pesticide-laden soil, because years ago, when the cotton plantations, we used to use arsenic as a pesticide. That's a big problem, and basically most of the rice from America has higher levels of arsenic than you would think. The second part, most commonly arsenic, is water, okay? In America, it's 10 parts per billion is considered to be okay. Most of the thought leader groups will tell you 3 parts per billion. It costs too much money to go from 10 to 3. Cayman, we have pretty good water here. Just for curiosity, I called up. They check, their number is 50 parts per billion. It's 5 times America, where they'll check it once a year. So it is kind of an interesting thing. You can basically get rid of it a little bit by taking distilled water, cooking with distilled water, but not regularly, because that'll get you sick as well. All right? And then real quickly, there is a great aspect of, there's a good rice called Lundberg. It comes out of California, and very low arsenic levels. And if you use the French style of cooking, which is basically you use 10 cups to 1 cup of rice, and basically make it al dente, and then drain it. Get rid of all that white gunky starch. It's actually lower in carbs, and it's lower in arsenic for sure, okay? So some myths. Tofu. Everybody knows tofu causes cancer, and it's this horrible thing. That's complete bullshit. Sorry, doctor.
Wait, Linford, just censor that, Linford. Yeah, when you're doing
sorry
a video.
about that.
Yeah.
So basically, that's my New Yorker coming out, I'm sorry. So basically, tofu does not cause cancer, okay? What's interesting about tofu is, tofu, from a cooking perspective, is basically egg whites, okay, with no cholesterol and no significant saturated fats, all right? And that's the way to really think about it. Basically, what it does is it does have phytoestrogens in there. The phytoestrogens, there's alpha and beta. Beta prevents and diminishes the risk of breast cancer. Alpha increases it. If you eat an excessive amount of soybeans, okay, tofu, in respect to, if you look at basically animal models, the equivalent to get any sort of cancer issues, you have to eat 58 cups of soybeans a day, all right? So if you have enough time to do that, it's not a good thing. Don't do that, okay? But basically, there are no studies, and in fact, the American Cancer Society has said women with breast cancer should increase the amount of soy in their diet, okay? Which really goes against what a lot of people think. I'm not sure what number this is. This is my last one? Am that good? I don't know, 2 more. Well, real quick, eggs. Eggs are bad for you. Ravi said eat 3 a week. They're not really that good. The reality is that in America, we call it the incredible edible egg, right? The only reason why is because they tried to make it the nutritious egg. They tried to make it the complete metal. They tried to make it a piece of health. They can't. It's too high in saturated fats. And like I said, it's basically tofu with a lot of cholesterol. Half of the protein for all of my egg white eaters, half of the protein of the egg is in the yolk. So when you're only eating egg whites, you're getting half the amount of typical protein. So it's really difficult to get a good amount of protein without eating at least 4 to 5 egg whites per meal, which most people aren't. They're usually just doing 2 to 3. And I guess lastly, just coconut oil. There was a good movie not too long ago that was actually made in Grand Cayman. But coconut oil, and I think Dr. Ravi hit on this, basically American Academy of Cardiologists in the United States have said that this is something you got to stay away from. Coconut is good if you're eating all the fiber and the fruit and the milk and the oil, but isolating it is not, okay? It's just way too high in saturated fats. And I used to eat, I was doing about 6 months of 2 tablespoons. I was making vegan bullet coffee instead of using butter. And my LDL went up by 30%, and Ravi's actually my cardiologist, so he yelled at me, so I stopped doing it. So no more coconut oil. And sorry for the little blurb.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. David. We have another car that we need moved, 158455. So if you're driving a vehicle with license plate number 158455, you need to go and move your car, please, if you would be so kind. All right, so next up on our panel of myths and facts. So any new information yet, guys? Anything that our panelists have said that's made you go, Yeah? Yeah? All right. Start thinking about those questions. Your opportunity, your time is coming. So next up, we have Dr. Virginia Hobday. She's qualified in medicine from St. Bartholomew's Hospital Medical School in London and did her undergraduate and postgraduate family medicine training at St. Bartholomew's Hospital in London as well. She holds an MPhil from Cambridge University in the history of medicine and the philosophy of science, and she has worked in France, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Iraq, and regularly attends international medical conferences. She is the senior general practitioner at Cayman Clinic, where she has practiced for the last 17 years after moving into private practice after 3 years in the Cayman Islands Public Health Department. Her areas of interest are family medicine, weight control, women's health, and family planning. Dr. Hobday is also the medical director of Cayman Hospice Care and has been on the board of directors for the past 16 years. She works with a team of 4 nurses and 2 carers to provide palliative and end-of-life services to any individual in the Cayman Islands. She completed her certification in practical palliative care through the University of Teesside in the UK. In 2015, Dr. Hobday was named a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, or MBE, for her work in hospice care. And she even was kind enough to tell me I don't have to curtsy every time I see her. She's also a medical director of Cayman's Breast Cancer Foundation and an associate professor at St. Matthew's Medical School, and she's been involved in teaching clinical skills to their students since 2005. She is a past president of the Cayman Islands Medical and Dental Society and past vice president of the Medical and Dental Council. She's a long-standing member of the Cayman Islands Ethics Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, with her myths and facts, please welcome Dr. Virginia Hobday.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I have to admit that I'm actually a substitute for the original speaker, who was Mr. Mike Ciel, who is unfortunately unable to attend. But Mike is a pharmacist and a member of a medical advice panel on a nutrition system that's been very successful in Canada and around the world, and came to Cayman about 4 years ago. And I've heard him speak on several occasions, and he's a great source of information, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. So I just wanted to briefly have a few words before I talk about the myths, just to say that, you know, recognize that we are in the middle of a war, and that weight and obesity, overweight and obesity, is a worldwide phenomenon. And so it's not surprising that an industry has built up around this escalating crisis. But on top of diet, there are more important fundamental issues that have to be addressed, and those are political will, public health policy, food manufacturers, and intensive farming. These are all major issues that need to be addressed seriously, as they are fueling individuals' poor choices. So an individual will choose a diet, but they will choose a diet that's available or you know, popular, and that's up to governments and populations to take more seriously, I think. So some of the myths that have developed around dieting and weight loss have really now become accepted as truths. And many of those supposed truths have negatively impact people who are wanting to make healthy choices and to lose weight and keep it off. And so they face these myths and think that they can't do it. In the last 30 years, I've talked to patients about diet and healthy lifestyle every single day, several times. Indeed, it takes so much of my time that we now have added the addition service of a dietitian in our office, because you need time to talk to patients about diet and lifestyle change. I did check the British Heart Foundation's website, and that states that much dietary advice is now outdated, and they listed their myths 1 to 10, and they were surprisingly similar to the ones I had drawn up. So I'm going to list them, but then just talk about 3 of them. So, skipping breakfast helps you lose weight. Do not eat after 8 p.m. Never have treats. Certain foods burn fat. Snacking is unhealthy. Fats are bad and make you fat. All calories are equal. Genetics define your body weight, and you can out-exercise a poor diet. So talking firstly about the myth about breakfast, and this is one which I'm constantly surprised about, how many people actually don't eat breakfast, and that not eating breakfast has actually become an ingrained habit. So they say you should eat the breakfast of a king, the lunch of a prince, and the dinner of a pauper. But many people in the morning feel that they don't have time, they don't feel hungry first thing, and they believe that if they skip at least one meal, they will reduce their daily calorie intake. The reality is that it increases hunger later in the day, encourages sudden urges to eat and eat larger portions. So breakfast breaks your overnight fast and gets your metabolism into burning mode and not fat storage mode. And that's why it's called break fast. The second myth is about snacking. The human body is designed to keep the metabolism ticking over slowly, like a steam train. Keeping hunger at bay by having healthy snacks interspersed with smaller meals is physiologically more sound. The key, of course, is that those snacks must be healthy, and convenient vending machine packets rarely are. So preparation of food as meals and snacks is key. From deciding what meals and snacks to have, buying the food, preparing it, and having them available quickly is where busy people can fail. So the third myth is about exercise. Now, diet and exercise are 2 sides of the coin of healthy living, the yin and the yang. They complement each other, and both have very important effects on metabolism. You are setting yourself up for failure if you think that running or going to the gym will allow you to splurge on sodas and fast food at will. So here are a few interesting facts. 1 20-ounce can of soda, sugar-laden of course, takes 4.5 miles of jogging to burn off. A supersized fast food meal will take a whole week of 4-mile daily runs to burn off. If you eat that meal every day, you will have to run a marathon to burn it off. So when we talk to people who are overweight about weight loss and dietary change, and they say, oh, I'll get back to the gym, you know exactly where that is heading. So diet should precede exercise, especially if you are obese, to avoid injury and illness. And you should start with gentle walking, swimming, biking, yoga, but not excessive exercise. So now a few facts about diets and fads. So are diets inherently doomed to failure? Well, the answer is yes and no. Many people have followed programs like Weight Watchers, Mediterranean diets, amongst others, and have been very successful. There are nearly as many weight loss programs as individuals, and different people respond to different methods. So simply following a balanced diet works for many, but the rate of weight loss can be slow, and this discourages the majority of us, and people therefore fall off the wagon. So a tailored program can be more helpful. So just because something is tailored doesn't mean to say it's faddish, but the more extreme and unlike a normal eating pattern the diet promotes, the less likely it is to be sustainable. So in other words, sensible diets work, but faddy ones don't. There are some low sugar ketogenic diets based on educating clients about weight loss and making healthy lifestyle changes. And people do need to understand the biochemistry and physiology of how weight is gained and lost in order to commit to changing their lifestyle and their ingrained habits. The diets that reduce sugar consumption, so the body has to burn fat as its energy source in a simple term. So that people assume that this, what we call ketosis, is a dangerous process, but in fact, it's a tailored burning of the body's fat sources, not ketoacidosis, which is a completely different thing and a very dangerous condition. So most good diets should encourage eating vegetables and natural protein, promoting home preparation, as we've talked about before, planning meals, encouraging portion control, and watching your plate configuration. We should look at both weight loss and inches lost, and recognize that the percentage of body fat that we lose is one of the most important indicators of how healthy we are becoming. Gentle exercise should be encouraged, and motivation, inner motivation, is very important as a fact. You have to encourage accountability to yourself, and many diets encourage food journaling, and indeed a lot of studies have confirmed that even if you just keep a daily journal of what you've eaten, you actually lose weight because you realize what you're eating and what you shouldn't be eating. So the reduction of sugar in the diet is the key to success, because we now consume over 200 pounds or more of sugar per year as compared to only 5 pounds in 1900. So that's 195 pounds more of sugar per year in the space of 117 years. So finally, the maintenance of weight loss is a challenging one, especially when we're faced with so many temptations. But if people learn skills and prevent the yo-yo effect and maintain their weight loss, it can be successful. And it is amazing to see how people can be transformed by their weight loss. And nothing makes me happier than taking people off their medication when they've attained their weight and health goals. So I wish you all health, and hope this conference's theme, Food for Thought, will sit longer in your mind than calories do on the hips.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hovde. Okay, a couple more announcements. We have some more cars, and now I have plates and models. I'm getting more and more information. So we have a gray Honda Inspire, license plate 121089. We have a white Honda CRV, license plate 135338, and a gray Honda CRV, license plate 158445. So if you or someone you know, like maybe your friend, because it's not really you, own that car, or one of those cars, please go and move them. And we've also found a phone that we think belongs to Marjorie Bryan. It's a Samsung, and it's at the Tower booth, if you are looking for that. Okay, great. So moving on to our next panelist, we have Dr. Keelan Fox. Dr. Keelan is a general dental surgeon from Ireland with over 8 years of clinical experience, including general practice and emergency dental care. Dr. Keelan obtained a Bachelor of Dental Science degree with honors from Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. Prior to commencing her career in private practice, Dr. Keelan held the position of Junior House Officer in the Dublin Dental Hospital Accident and Emergency, providing emergency dental treatment to patients who had sustained trauma or serious infection. Dr. Keelan has worked as a general dental surgeon in private practice since 2008, providing routine restorative care, preventative dentistry, pediatric dentistry, endodontic treatment, periodontal treatment, and prosthodontics and oral surgery. Dr. Keelan was involved in the oral cancer awareness campaigns in Ireland and was nominated for Irish Sensodyne Dentist of the Year in 2014. Please welcome with her facts and myths, Dr. Keelan Fox.
Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. So my presentation on the facts and myths are, they'd be things that we come across in the dental surgery. So I can't hear you.
Try that.
So yeah, that's better. So I just decided I would speak about some facts and myths that we come across in the dental office, so it'll be slightly different to the other guys. So the first myth I thought I would discuss is sometimes when patients come in, they often say to me, we have soft teeth in our family. So I just like to remind them that, well, teeth is actually composed of 3 layers: enamel on the outside, and this is one of the hardest substance, or is the hardest substance in the human body. It's comprised of a mineral, hydroxyapatite. It's incredibly hard and strong. And in kids, they have 20 teeth, and in adults, we have 32. So it's quite rare for people to have soft teeth unless you have a very rare condition like melogenesis imperfecta or something like that. Typically, and this leads me on to my next fact, what they're talking about, their soft teeth, is actually dental caries. And this is a massive problem globally. It's one of the most prevalent non-communicable diseases globally and one of the most prevalent diseases in kids. And this is despite the great improvements in prevention and treatment over the years. It still continues to cause huge amounts of pain and anxiety. There's a multifactorial etiology for caries, and maybe if we could understand that and remind our patients of that, we have a chance at improving people's quality of life. So we need a susceptible tooth, we need bacteria in the form of dental plaque, particularly Streptococcus mutans, and we need a substrate or sugar, and that comes in the diet. And this is nothing new. It dates back to antiquity, but the prevalence has increased with civilization, urbanization, and affluence. And over the years, there's been many studies to relate diet and dental caries, but we haven't really got the message. Back in the 40s, with wartime diets, where sugar was restricted in World War II, they saw a dramatic drop in dental caries, which rose again when the restrictions were lifted. And this was seen not only in the UK, but in Japan and Norway. Hopewood House in Australia, back in the 40s, they had a very controlled or restricted carbohydrate diet, and their caries rate was seen to be 1/10 compared to the Australian national average. The 50s, the Viapone studies in Sweden, this was institutionalized patients where they fed them different quantities and types of sugar, and they concluded that the frequency of sugar as well as the substrate was an issue, and when conditions returned to normal, the caries rate dropped again. Tristan da Cunha in the 60s is a volcanic island in the South Atlantic, and they were evacuated because of a volcanic eruption. They moved to the UK where they discovered sugar, and the caries rate soared. Even more recently, 2004, a study by Roatan et al. Found that children are a very vulnerable group, that their sugar habits start early in childhood, and that the caries incidence is low when the free sugars are less than 5%. So we all know where people get sugar, but one study by Karjalainen in 2007 found the 10 most common causes were cocoa, fruit juices, soft drinks, breakfast cereals, yogurts, lemonades, ice cream, cookies, fruits, chocolate, jams. But the one I wanted to kind of home in a bit on is the soft drinks, because this is a massive problem for us. The global sales are 350 billion. In 2014, Professor Davies in the UK found that in high school children, 1/3 of their added sugar was coming from soft drinks, which then prompted a new campaign on action on sugar, and has basically resulted in this sugar tax, which will hopefully come into force in 2018 in the UK and Ireland. So a can of Coke has 35 grams of sugar in it, and drinks that have a total sugar content of 5 grams per 100 ml will be taxed It remains to see if this will have an impact, but hopefully it will, and it's certainly welcomed by dental practitioners and most doctors. My second myth, I'll get shorter after this, is that, well, they're only baby teeth and they don't really matter. Well, they actually do matter. The baby teeth come into the mouth at about 6 months, and some of them will last until the children are 12. If caries from excess sugar and inappropriate feeding happens, the children end up in pain, which results in anxiety, functional limitation, and can adversely affect their quality of life. It also starts a very bad cycle for us, where we're seen as the bad guys, and it's very hard to win those patients back, and often requires the increased use of general anaesthetic, which as a parent I certainly wouldn't want for my kids, if possible. So there's a condition called early childhood caries, and I've seen it more here than I ever saw it when I worked in Europe. So if anything comes out of this, this would be my thing I'd like people to focus on. This is a type of decay. It's a rapidly forming decay that affects the upper front teeth in kids. And often we see it when kids are fed to bed. So they hold a bottle of milk in their mouth and they fall asleep. And the lactose in the milk bathes the teeth and the teeth rot. So I don't know, a minute ago I said some of the teeth last to 12. The top front teeth are supposed to be in your mouth until you're 8 or 9. And some of these children present at 2 and the teeth have to be removed. Is that an issue? There's another set coming through. Well, it is an issue because we know that children who have decay in their primary teeth, their baby teeth, are more likely to have decay in their adult teeth. The baby teeth guide the adult teeth into position, so they're more likely to have crowding and need orthodontics. So that was my next fact, that the deciduous dentition maintains space and integrity for the adult dentition. So if we look after the baby ones, we have a good chance of maintaining the adult ones. My last myth is that around fluoride and fact, they go together. So there's huge controversy about fluoride, and there's a lot of misinformation out about fluoride. And there's the anti-fluoride movement are quite strong, especially have a high social media presence, and they link fluoride with basically everything. Low IQ in children, Down syndrome. They object to mass medication. Even in the 40s, they thought it was a communist plot to undermine the American public health. The fact is, my third fact, fluoride has helped prevent dental decay and maintain dental health. Hydroxyapatite in teeth can remineralize in the presence of fluoride, making it harder than the original tooth and more resistant to decay. But don't take my word for it. The WHO says it has substantial advantages in reducing dental decay, and the American Dental Association said it's one of the safest and most beneficial, cost-effective public health measures for preventing and controlling decay. That was basically it. So thank you. Better teeth, better health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fox. That's very, very interesting. The good news is I haven't been informed of any other parking violations, so clearly that's all been sorted out. Our final panelist with her facts and myths is Tamara Worms-Riley, and she's currently the community dietitian at the Health Services Authority in the Public Health Department and has been a dietitian for over 7 years. She is passionate about nutrition and volunteerism, as well as diabetes in children, which has led her to submit and present research posters at numerous international conferences, such as the 38th International Society for Pediatric and Adolescent Diabetes Conference in 2012 in Istanbul, Turkey. In 2013, she was accepted among 21 individuals across the world to attend the Research Methodology Science School for Healthcare Professionals in Sweden, and she also presented a research poster at the 2nd and 4th International Conference on Nutrition and Growth in Barcelona, Spain in 2014, and Amsterdam, Netherlands in 2017, respectively, as well as the 40th Anniversary Conference of the International Society for Pediatric and Adolescent Diabetes in Toronto, Canada. She is a member of the International Society for Pediatric and Adolescent Diabetes, as well as the Nutrition and Growth Network. Her passion for advocacy in nutrition is what motivates her in doing more for people who seek her service and advice. Ladies and gentlemen, with her facts and myths, please welcome Tamara Worms-Riley.
Hello everyone, I'm must say, my disclosure is that it is one of the most difficult time to be a dietitian in this millennium. Now, nutrition remains as complicated and undefined. It's rather open-ended, and it's really unclear as it has been for the last decade, thus being an ever-evolving field in science. Now, we understand that there is unquestionable data from numerous longitudinal studies that shows the body is designed to adequately use whole foods available in their natural state, though we have modified, we have removed, and even destroyed some of the vital nutrients our bodies need from most of these foods to optimally function. Now, research suggests that this has led to most chronic diseases. We still have questions, and can these questions ever be fully answered? Now, the fact is, our body's needs cannot be optimally met by modified foods, as nature has proven time and time again that individualism is as perfect as one can get. Therefore, each person has individual nutritional requirements that suits their own fundamental needs. So there's no one size fit all. So sometimes when patients ask me, do you have a diet sheet? No, I don't. Because most times we have to calculate your individual required needs. Now, the body is designed in such a way that science may not be able to replicate nutrition, nor replace nutrients in their exact form in foods, and evidently may not be able to fulfill our desire for achieving optimal health. Now, my first myth is that most times people will say they have consulted Dr. Google. So I Googled it. It must be true. Now, the fact is, if you read about your diet plan, whether it be in the newspaper or you heard about it on TV, you need to go to the original source, which should be in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. This goes back to evidence-based practice. Now, solid recommendations are based on multiple years of studies. Another myth is that if I exercise, I can eat whatever I want, right? No, that's wrong. And I heard somebody said that before. If you're exercising 7 days per week to lose weight, you will need to keep an eye on how many calories you're eating. Nutrition or not, portion size matters with every food. Now, another myth is that you can lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks and be healthier. I'm sure we have heard about those myths on TV. Many weight loss plan gurus have suggested that you can lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. And yes, you may lose these 10 pounds in 2 weeks. However, you will have the negative effects later, because research has shown that most weight will return once you start eating normally again, and you will start eating normally again. You will need to eliminate at least 3,500 calories, which is the amount in 1 pound of fat. Now, so if you remove 500 calories and you exercise at least 1 to 2 hours per day, you can lose the weight you want to lose and you can maintain it. This is more maintainable. Now, another myth is that dried fruits or vegetables are just as healthy as fresh fruits. No, I don't believe that. Drying out foods such as fruits and vegetables reduce the vitamin C they retain, but it can also concentrate other nutrients such as the sugars. Dehydrating foods also makes food products more energy dense, which may contribute to your weight gain. The fact is, there are no known conclusive longitudinal studies by any renowned scientist that shows foods modified for achieving and maintaining optimal weight is ideal for anyone. Also, another fact, foods modified experimentally through extreme changes, such as changing its chemical structure, does not effectively meet the body's needs. As it has lost its wholesomeness and no longer provides optimal nutrition. Thus, we cannot expect to achieve long-term positive effect from modified foods as we would expect from whole foods. Now, to share another fact with you, research from the Caribbean Public Health Agency shows that 80% of our adults do not consume the required amount of fruits and vegetables daily, which is approximately 3 to 5 servings. And another fact is the World Health Organization research on obesity has showed that it has reached epidemic proportions. At least 2.8 million people dying each year from being overweight or obese. Now the fact is, the same organization research has shown that approximately 2.7 million lives could be potentially saved each year if fruits and vegetables were consumed in the right proportions. Now the problem I have is that in some places in the world, we say corn is a vegetable. In some places in the world, we say Irish potato is a vegetable. Now, in the Caribbean, our own Caribbean researchers have shown that these are starches. And the fact is that if I should say I'm going to cook some soup in the Caribbean, I'm going to put corn and I'm going to put Irish potatoes. Now, the fact is that if you say to me, are you eating your vegetables? Yes, I am. When in truth and in fact, my soup is mainly full of starches. So I think the problem that we have is not education. Our people are educated. The problem is clarity. That's what's missing. We're not clear. And I'm not going against any research at all, because these are what we depend on, longitudinal research. No, another problem is that, yes, Greek yogurt is a good yogurt. I don't have a problem. No, the problem I find is that when I go to the supermarket, yes, it's nice and it's creamy and it's low fat or reduced fat, but the sugar is so high. So these are some of the facts that we need to make clear when we're establishing these things to people. Clarity is missing, and that is what we need to look into. How do we clarify these things, separating the facts from what are myths? Thank you very much.
All right. Wow. Some food for thought. Can I get a big round of applause for all of our panelists, please? Okay, so that must have generated some questions. They're standing by. Just hold your hand up if you've got a question. There's one here, one in the front. I know that this gentleman is going to talk about soda tax. We're coming to you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Okay, in the back first.
I do have a question for Dr. Ruder, food physician.
Oh, okay.
When you mention about freezing the leftover, I just would like to ask a little question. Do you still warm the food in the microwave or in the conventional oven or on the stove top?
Yeah, you can do any. I mean, I prefer to heat it up in the oven because usually it's gonna heat up more evenly than if you do it in the microwave. But you could do it on the stovetop as well. It kind of depends on what you're making. For example, you know, if you're making chicken cutlets breaded in whole wheat breadcrumbs or something like that, you want it to actually stay crispy when you heat it up. So for something like that, I would definitely heat it up in the oven as opposed to doing that on the microwave or in the stove. But another thing that I freeze a lot, soups and stews freeze really well. Pasta sauces, things like that, that you can heat up in the microwave, but stove would probably be the best for something like that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Any other panelists want to comment on the oven versus microwave? No? Next question, if you can stand and...
Are there any benefits to almond milk? Almond milk.
Okay. Anybody want to jump in on almond milk?
Tastes really good. Basically, again, lower cholesterol. You know, I don't eat dairy. I think you know, cow's milk is really good for baby cows. You know, I don't want breast milk, and so almond milk is my kind of go-to. But as far as the sweetener goes, you do have to watch. If you look at the almond milk, almost everywhere you go, it says sweetened, unsweetened. So again, sugars are basically most of and Dr. Ravi was talking about this, healthy food is bigger money than fast food. There's Whole Foods wasn't bought out by Amazon because it wasn't making money. So the reality is that you have to really watch the marketing techniques, and you have to flip the labels and really look. And generally, if it says sugar, cornstarch, corn syrup, or sugar solids in the first 2 lines, you're better off looking for something else to eat.
Any other comments from the panel on almond milk? So I have a question about almond milk and the My Plate that we saw earlier, and it said that you needed to have a serving of dairy. So does the almond milk qualify for that?
No, it doesn't.
Does not. Okay.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, the fact is that you're getting protein from almond milk, yes, some, but I wouldn't qualify that as dairy milk because it's from the nut, legumes and nuts group. So though you may get some protein from the almond milk, there is no way you can actually compare it to dairy because of what you're getting from it.
Okay. Good to know. And,
Yeah, I was
Dr.
going to say it would probably
Question.
count more towards a protein group because nuts and seeds are included in the protein group. I think it's a little bit controversial too, to be honest with you, the dietary guidelines inclusion of dairy. So that's something that might change in the future. One of the concerns people have with almond milk is getting enough calcium, but I'm not sure. You could probably let me know. I think most of them are supplemented with calcium. Yes.
There's more calcium in almond milk than there is in dairy milk. Is just you don't have the saturated fats and cholesterol that you'll get in the dairy.
Type of whey protein that you get from
Okay, we have a question down here in the front.
I just wanted to ask because I did not heard it well. Why the testosterone in men drops, you said?
Because they don't come to see me. Basically, men and women are very similar. The women basically lose estrogen and progesterone as we get a little older. Men lose testosterone. And at 35, a normal man will stop making testosterone slowly. By the time a gentleman is about 60, it's not uncommon that he have the same amount of testosterone as his wife or partner. So the reality is there's so many toxins out there now that are blocking normal production of testosterone, specifically like little plastic bottles. They basically act like estrogen. When you have a lot of estrogen in the body, it's from basically excessive testosterone or fat, body fat. So if you're 100 pounds overweight as a man, you have so much estrogen that your body says, well, it must be you have too much testosterone, and your production plummets. So what it acts like is as a poison. And any kind of BPA is really, really bad because basically it stays in your body for about 1.5 years. So it's really hard to get rid of. There's no detox.
Great, thank you.
Another one for Dr. Fox is about children eating yogurt, you said? It's full of sugar.
Like my colleague here was saying, a lot of the yogurts would have the same amount of sugar really as a bag of candies. So it depends what you're shopping for. Some of the yogurts, certainly the ones my kids want me to buy, have M&Ms and Cheerios in them or Oreos. So that's like a bag of candies, So it depends what you're buying. If you're buying natural yogurt, if it's sweetened yogurt, so I would welcome more advertising about the sugar content. I think that's definitely a valid point. But it depends what yogurt you're buying. A lot of them are very sweetened. Yeah.
Tamara, do you want to jump in? No? Okay. And we have a question back here.
Yes, Edris Ocho. I have a question as it relates to fruits and vegetables. I know that has been a standard statement in many of these forums. As it relates to the use of chemicals, because you're looking at mass production. For instance, years ago you have your garden next to your home. Now we are purchasing from the supermarkets. So my question is, in terms of the effects of chemical due to mass production, how do we get good fruits and vegetables other than your back garden?
Okay, good question. Who wants to take that one?
No, to be honest, that's a very difficult question because I have been asked that question many times. How do we get good fruits and vegetables? Now, you want to tell people to look for organic things, but what is organic? The fact is that we are now having such an influx of genetically modified things that is still being considered as organic. And it goes back to, we have to be very careful of what we are purchasing. If we know that it's coming from a reputable source, then we understand that that may be a fact. But we now need to look at, as somebody mentioned, policies to make sure that what we're getting is coming from a reputable source, and we know that what is said is organic is actually organic. And that's the only way you will know.
I guess, yeah, if I could add something. This stuff will drive you crazy. You know, I mean, especially coming to a 3-day conference on food, you can get nuts. And you know, and you can only have 3 nuts a week or something, whatever they said, so it's not good, right? But the reality is you have to pick and choose your poison, okay? And the reality is that we're getting inundated on things. So one of the things, like we were just talking about with organics, organic is, again, I preface everything because I come from New York and New Jersey, and we're all criminal there anyway. So organics, you have to be careful because you have to pay, for you to have an organic label on your food product, you have to pay for that. It's not like you could just stamp it. So you have to be very careful. So growing it in your backyard and knowing what's in it is the best, but you know, how many people have the time to do that, right? So you can talk, and then if you look up online, what is the best foods to buy organic and what foods you don't have to? Things with hard shells, like for example, you know, melons or oranges, things that you can wash and then peel. A lot of the pesticides won't necessarily leach in, whereas broccoli, you can't clean broccoli. I mean, if you know, how you gonna get in there with your Q-tip and stuff? So you're not gonna happen. But like, and then, you know, the way I usually tell my patients and friends and things is, well, organic costs $1 more. Yeah, I know, but get organic bananas and get regular bananas and taste them. You can taste the difference. So if it tastes good and it's better for you, chances are it's okay. But certain things like, you know, buying organic zucchini or buying organic oranges, you're kind of, I think, wasting your money. But certain things that really will leach it, tomatoes, they suck up pesticides big time. So you have to kind of watch. So you have to just do your due diligence and realize that if you can avoid certain things, that's great. But the reality is we're bombarded with things, and it's very difficult.
Great, we have another question.
And buying local is always, you know, something that you can choose to do.
Okay. All right, another question.
This question is for Dr. Fox. Question is for Dr. Fox. If fluoride is important for our dental health, and it's not in the water supply here, then what is the best way to consume fluoride?
So when we talk about the benefits of fluoride, they can be pre-eruptively, so that's when the tooth is forming, or post-eruptively, when the tooth is in your mouth. And the greatest benefit, they believe, is post-eruptively. And what we think is excellent is topical application, so fluoride toothpaste. But that's another area that needs better labelling, and that was addressed in one of the Cochrane reviews, which is a very high-level review, because even myself, sometimes when I look at toothpaste, I'm like, is there fluoride in that? Like, the labelling isn't great for fluoride. But there's a lot of non-fluoride toothpaste here, and that's very popular with people. But the whole point of fluoride is that you're topically applying it onto the tooth and getting the remineralization and the benefits. So they're not getting any of that, they're just getting the cleaning of the surface. So for me, fluoride toothpaste, when the kids are old enough, potentially fluoride mouthwashes, sometimes professionally applied fluoride. We don't want to be ingesting too much fluoride because high levels of fluoride isn't great, but sufficient levels, it's very beneficial.
My name is Casey Ann, and there is a question for Mrs. Riley. Speaking about fruits and vegetable, I know that there is a lot of benefits in having avocado, but I would like to know, is it a vegetable or a fruit?
Avocado is in the fats and oils group. And these things are grouped based on their constituents. And based on the amount of fat that is found in avocado, it's really under the fats and oils group. Though it's a healthy fat, it's something that you still want to have in moderation. So even though people say, yes, it's heart healthy, you have to understand it doesn't make sense you try to bring your cholesterol down but send your triglycerides level up. So you really want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you do it in moderation. So it's still a healthy fat, but it's a fat.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Dr. Scott, you say that soya bean is healthy, but it's one of the vegetable or being modified. Second, my oncologist told me don't take any type of soya in any form because I have breast cancer, and she's oncologist, so I want you to get clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, so soybeans are healthy, and oncologists told you not to take it. What was the first part of it?
Genetically modified.
Oh, genetically modified. Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before. We're bombarded with poisons. I mean, I think the current number is something like 90% of soybeans worldwide are genetically modified. And you can have a 3-day conference just on that and Monsanto and all this, corruption that's going on, and it's hard. You can find, and Kirk's and Foster's do a pretty good job. I haven't been out to Hurley's in case they're here. But they do a pretty good job of non-GMO tofu, anyway. And so that's one thing. As far as your oncologist suggesting that, there have been 5 big studies with over 10,000 women in the last 5 years. And the old, don't eat soy is old. It's at least 9 years old, where the American Cancer Society is actually recommending the opposite. So they're, like I said, if you reach out to the American Cancer Society, the difference is the old thinking is it was estrogen. Well, it's a type of estrogen. There's 2 types, A and B. B actually protects you against a recurrence and protects you against metastasis. So it's actually very, very safe. If you look at the worldwide population of people that ingest soybeans and tofu and things like that, they have the lowest breast cancer rates in the world.
Anybody want to add to that? Okay, we have another question here in the front row.
I'd like to make a comment on what you just said about soya beans being very healthy. There is a book written called The China Study. It is a study that was done by 3 professors, one from the US, Canada, and China. And the China study was done on 650,000 women, people in the US, and the people of 35 villages in China. And the China study shows clearly that Chinese women, their rate of breast cancer is much, much lower. The rural Chinese people grow their own soya beans, process it themselves, and eat it during their whole lifetime. They don't know what the word menopause means because they don't get menopause. They don't get breast cancer. And so they're an example of how beneficial soya beans are to us. But you have to be very careful when you're buying it, purchasing it, because the silk soya milk is not only, it's organically grown soya beans. So it's very important that you read the labels. Also, all tofu that's sold in Cayman now, there's very few tofu on the shelves in any of the supermarkets that are genetically modified. Most of them now are non-genetically modified. And most of our soya products are non-genetically modified because people are more conscious and ask in the supermarkets to buy the products than they are. But my comment that I wanted to make, that wasn't my comment, but I got caught up in that. My comment that I want to make is this. The country with the highest rate of osteoporosis Does anyone know what countries? Scandinavia has the highest rate of osteoporosis. I think it might be Finland, I'm not sure, one of those countries. But guess what? They also have the highest rate of dairy intake. There are studies that shows a correlation between dairy and the leaching of calcium from the bones. That is what the dairy industry doesn't want us to know. So to my mind, the best source of calcium for us is the plant-based calcium. And we don't really specialize in knowing what products in our diet should be included in our diet that will give us good amounts of calcium, because we need to be including those every day in our diet to help prevent osteoporosis, to help strengthen our teeth and our bones. And those are, of course, all of our leafy green vegetables. We should be having large quantities of that every day in our diet. And also other things, many other things, like, for example, the almond milk, as well as the soya milk also has high amount of calcium in it. But other things that we need to know about, especially for our children, are sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are very high in calcium. Figs are very high in calcium. We need to know beans are high in calcium. Certain beans, I think navy beans are higher than others. So we need to really know what foods are very high in calcium so that we can include those in our diet. We have to deliberately include them. If we leave out dairy, we've got to replace it with something that's going to make sure that we have those ingredients, those nutrients in our diet. Thank you.
Not sure if anyone on the panel wants to add to the calcium comment.
Oh no, I was just wondering about your comment about the high rates of osteoporosis in the Scandinavian countries. I wonder if that has something to do with vitamin D as well, because you need vitamin D in order to absorb calcium.
Right.
And we get vitamin D from the sun. Vitamin D is a sunlight vitamin, and our bodies absorb it, and it gets converted in our bodies to the active form. And we know that people who live in northern latitudes don't get as much sunlight and don't absorb the calcium D as much. So I wonder if that has something to do with the high rates as well.
Any other comments from the panel? No? Okay, we've got a question in the back.
Yes, let me thank the panel for the interesting contribution that they made to Facts and Myths. I find it very courageous to actually list facts and myths. I can't help but thinking that a few years ago, a lot of these facts that you're giving now were myths, and a lot of the myths that were there are now facts. So maybe in another 5 years that might change. I have two questions, and I've been told that I need to wrap them up into one question. Anybody from the panel could answer it. Could you clarify for us the issue of sugar? Sugar has been made the public enemy #1 in this conference, and in fact before the conference. But I've been encouraged to eat a lot of fruit, and I love fruit. In fact, I think fruit is, as a group, is my favorite thing to eat. I like to eat mangoes. I like grapes. I like bananas. I like all the stuff that seems to be quite sweet. They're all organic, non-GMOs. So please clarify for us, because there seems to be a conflict, and in the average person's mind, you can't eat those fruits. So that would be the first question. The second question goes to Dr. Fox in particular. I've been to the dentist, and I've been told that I've been brushing my teeth too hard. And so as a result, I've eroded the strongest material in my body, and it won't come back. And I use the softest brush that is possible. So of course now I'm hesitant to brush. So if you could please help me out where that is concerned. And then just to close off, I'd just like to make a comment. I noticed at least 2 speakers referred to Hippocrates and his quote about food being our medicine and medicine being our food. And I wonder if it's not misquoted or misused. Before Hippocrates, or before there was focus on disease, in fact, if we go all the way back to the creation, food was a part of our being or existence before there was disease. So then focus on food as our medicine seems a bit, what's the word? Misleading. Misleading. And so many years after Hippocrates, another wise man said, the food that we put into our bodies is not what defiles us. So anyone from the panel might comment on that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we'll start with Dr. Fox. Maybe? No? I was going to say, maybe Dr. Fox can answer the brushing question first.
So, what you're describing, the overbrushing, that's actually very common as well. So what that's called is non-carious tooth loss. So you're getting, so what I discussed was tooth loss from caries or decay, but what you have is another form of tooth loss, but it's not from decay. And that's very common, often from overbrushing, as you say. So what we recommend is a very soft toothbrush or ultra soft, like you said, but actually most of the toothbrushes here in Cayman I find are hard or medium, so they're probably a bit too hard. And you should be using very light pressure, the pressure it takes to blanch your fingernail. But non-carious tooth loss is from lots of reasons. Sometimes people who grind wear down the sides of their teeth. It can be from erosion, which is very common because people drink so many soft drinks. The acidity in the soft drinks, even Diet Coke, for example, is very acidic, and that can dissolve the hardest substance in your body, as you say. But I would recommend you keep brushing, but maybe just alter your technique. Try an electric, and listen to your dentist. But well done for visiting your dentist. And then maybe someone else will take the other question.
Okay, let's talk about sugar and mangoes and bananas and all of those things.
Well, sugar in fruit comes in the form of fructose, which is actually fairly quickly digested as opposed to glucose that we add in for pure sugar. So, it's not inherently bad. It's the amount of sugar that we have, and it also depends on, your health, yourself. So if you're diabetic, you're not going to be able to process that sugar properly, so you're going to have to restrict your amount of sugar and fructose, even from what seems like a healthy source of sugar, which is fruit. So I think, no one's saying don't have fruit, and fruit is bad. I mean, it does have natural sugar in it, but it has to be eaten in moderation. But I think the real issue with sugar is the refined added sugars, the sugars that are added to cakes and cookies and all these other sorts of things, because the body is going to always use sugar before that you give it, and therefore whatever the fat, the rest will be stored as fat. So if you're actually wanting to lose weight, then sugar is the enemy. You want to reduce your intake of sugar so that your body burns fat, because once it sees sugar, it's already handing it there on a plate. That's what it's going to use as its energy source. So I think it's too black and white. It's just too easy to say all sugars are bad, because obviously they're not. But on the other hand, it has become public enemy number one for a good reason, and that's because, like I said, we consume quadruple, 5 times the amount that we used to.
Okay, Mara, you want to do that?
Well, just to add to that, now, usually, yes, as she mentioned, fruits are usually good for you. But the fact is, the mixing is the problem, because you mentioned all the sweet fruits. So the thing is, what I would want people to do is to mix some fresher fruits, that is, with the sweeter ones, and even try to mix them with vegetables, because you can have a fruit and vegetable salad, or a fruit and vegetable blend if that's what you're doing. So I think the problem is that people will like fruits, but people only like the very sweet fruits. So if we could mix them in the right pattern, I don't think there should be a real issue.
And it's important to be reminded of the importance of drinking
exactly. Right.
Dr. Reuter, you
Just a
wanna
quick note, like I talked about my lecture last night. In the U.S. anyway, yeah, the biggest source of added sugars is in drinks. It's like by far the biggest source. Sodas and energy drinks, which a lot of people don't realize. Sodas, even fruit juices. And I just wanted to mention that in the U.S. anyway, we have a new nutrition facts panel that's going to be on all packaged goods. Companies have until 2018 to comply, but there's actually a new category for added sugars on the nutrition label, and that's going to be on all packaged foods sold in the U.S., and that's a new change. We've never had that before, and it's just to kind of help people distinguish the difference between the natural sugars found in food, like in milk and fruit and things like that, versus the added sugars, which you're talking about, which is more of the problem.
Dr. Ruda, just to add to that, the only problem I have with the label, it's a very good label. The only problem I have with it, it gives you the total calories. But usually on our older label, though it didn't give you the added sugars, it gave you how much total calories in the packet, but then it also went ahead to give you how much calories come from fat. That has been removed to give us how much sugars is there and how much is added. So I think if they had done that in addition to keeping the old guidelines, then we could work with that. So I think that's where the issue lies. They take away one thing and then they add something else.
Yeah, you're right, because they also changed the nutrients at the bottom. It used to be, now it's vitamin D is on there and potassium is on there because they've recognized that those are what we're lacking in. So I agree with you, they take away one thing and add another.
Okay, another question. Question here. Yeah.
My name is Kathy Bissett. I'm a psychologist from Arizona, and I've waited throughout the conference, and maybe it'll happen tomorrow, but I'm not hearing about the impact of psychotropic medication and neurological medication on weight. I'm seeing some of my patients, Lyrica is good for 30 pounds. Prozac, good for 30 pounds. And so they come, they get a prescription from you, and then they come to me to help them overcome the 30 pounds that they've put on. So I'm just wondering if you have a comment on that, or has anyone seriously considered the role that we play in the fattening up of the United States and the rest of the world?
Anybody on the panel want to comment on that? Anybody?
Well, most of the psychotropic meds have, there's a real risky little risk to benefit ratio, and the side effects are usually kind of scary. A lot of the neurotropics and psychotropic meds do increase your risk for insulin resistance and diabetes and weight gain. Your SSRIs are known to cause. 30 pounds is a bit excessive. Typically my experience, the reason it happens is it actually blunts the thyroid function. And a lot of times psychiatrists in the old days used to check thyroid function before they put you on any medicine because, if you're hypothyroid, you can be just depressed. So what happens is, specifically the SSRIs, they'll blunt thyroid function, and that could be a big kick to the metabolism, and they can't lose it even if they do try. And then if you're depressed and now you put on 30 pounds, yeah, that makes you feel wonderful. So yeah, so you're absolutely right. I mean, patients that I put on any sort of psychotropic medicine, I really do try to encourage, decreasing sugar, but I also check thyroid function and see if there's a blunting there.
Can I just add to that, doctor? And I think one of the things too is that most of the patients are not aware, they're not made aware of these things. So they come to the dietitians with the expectation that we can fix this. So, and sometimes it's very, very hard to fix. So just lowering the sugars and lowering the fats and these things sometimes doesn't help because sometimes the weight becomes resistant. So I think this is something that we really need to find a way to address.
Okay, we got a question in the back over there.
Good evening, everyone. I'm grateful for this opportunity to attend this health conference. It's been very informative. The panels have been very informative to me. And my question is, I think, I'm not sure which doctor mentioned it, but you spoke about decaying of the teeth of a child, right? That's you. And I'm sure a lot of us can relate as women that if you have a young child, maybe as young as 21 months or younger, and you're trying to teach them to brush their teeth, they tend to chew on the toothbrush, or they want to swallow the toothpaste. And so trying to get behind there, what recommendations do you have that could make this process easier? That's number one. Number two, and I'm sure a lot of women have this question. When we change our cycles of life, there are a lot of us who end up with a lot of pimples on our face for one other reason, and there have been other studies that show, okay, it's what you eat, why your faces tend to break out, or it's a certain cream that you use in your hair, or some sort of things. Anybody have any idea as to what is a truth or a myth or whatever? And the last thing, just clear up what is it that or you can just describe what you meant when you said simple dietary work better. Simple dietary work, you mentioned something about simple dietary and fatty foods. If you could just break that down. But the two questions are important. Thanks.
So, sorry, I'll address the question about the brushing in the kids. So, I think I have a different perspective now that I have kids than when I first qualified. So, for me, I think the massive issue with dental decay is the frequency of sugar, and especially in this country, the fed into bed. If anyone takes anything, just please take that. Because that's a massive issue, the frequency of the sugar. Yes, the brushing is important, obviously, but in one of those studies I mentioned back in the 40s in Hopewood House in Australia, they had the very restricted refined carbohydrates. Their brushing was actually very poor, yet they had a very low caries rate, 1/10 the national average of Australia. So I'm not saying brushing isn't important, it is, and please don't quote me on that. But I think it's more, for me, it's about the diet. It's massive for this. Getting around, techniques to get around brushing your kids' teeth. Persistence, I would say, that's what's helped me in the past. Distraction, and you have to start early. Because, you know, all of a sudden if you go, oh, I'll actually start brushing this kid's teeth, these two, what is this foreign object that they're trying to choke me with? So you've got to get it in early, soft bristles, make it playful, distraction, I find. There's quite a few good apps out there that I've used, a bit of television sometimes, whatever it takes. And I definitely think practice makes perfect. So it gets easier. My kids want to brush their teeth now. It's not just because I'm a dentist. But at the start, it was a struggle even for me.
So your question about oily skin and acne and women going through the menopause, was that it? Well, I think, you know, a lot of that is actually not dietary related. I mean, it can be, but a lot of it is hormonally dependent. So, you know, people can have hormonal swings and surges which change their testosterone levels, and we know that testosterone, right, which is why a lot of young boys get acne around puberty. It's because of the increase in sebum production and the oil, and therefore the bacteria work on that, and they get spots. And part of that may be related, you know, what happens in menopause as well. And I unfortunately see a lot of kids who come in and their parents don't even mention the acne that their kids clearly have. They come in for something completely different, and they just say, well, it's because he eats too many chocolates and that sort of thing. And really, I think it's almost impossible to have severe acne just from your diet. I mean, this is a metabolic process that's going in the body, increasing the grease production in the skin.
Anybody want to add anything to that? No? Okay, question over here.
Good afternoon. I just like to say to Dr. Ruder, juicing helped me to get back my life. With the refuse, you can put in your cakes or you can put in your soups. You don't have to throw it away. But juicing is awesome for your immune system. And another thing, what I had to do, whenever I bought anything from the supermarkets, anywhere. I use a gallon of water. I use citrus fruits in the water, and I soak everything. Ginger, garlic, potatoes, carrots, everything goes in a bath. Comes out, drained, dries in the fridge. And it takes away quite a lot of that chemicals that I don't want in my body. Thank you.
No, I think that's great. And like I said, I like juice. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I was just talking about juice as a meal replacement, not being as filling because it doesn't have the fiber. But I think that's great that you're actually making use of all parts of the fruit. You know, I actually, one of the things I like to drink instead of soda is fruit-infused water. You know, I think that's an excellent way to use up the fruit. And if you're throwing the rest of your fruits and vegetables into your soups and stews, good for you. I mean, most people are not doing that, you know? So I think it's great. And if juice helped you feel better, that's great. Once again, I'm not saying juice is bad. I was just saying in terms of a meal replacement, it's just not going to keep you as full because it lacks the fiber. But it still has lots of great vitamins, you know, minerals, all sorts of nutrients.
Great.
Coconut oil and eggs. I'm hypothyroid. I used to be really thin, and I started gaining a lot of weight, and that's what it was. I spoke to several nutritionists, and coconut oil is something that I'm encouraged to take every day, or to cook in it, or olive oil. Also to eat 2 eggs with the yolk. Before that, I ate egg whites because I was a fitness fanatic. I had great stats, and I just want to find out. I need to know. Coconut oil is bad for you? I don't know. My father had dementia. He was really terrible, and we got him on coconut oil, and he's great. Good as rain.
That's good.
So I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, so hypothyroid, your metabolism is going to be a little low, right? So
it is. I
the thing
gained like
right,
70 pounds.
Right. So the thing is eating coconut oil and eggs are going to be a real high source of saturated fats, which is going to basically be a source of extra weight gain. And if you look at it just from purely calories, how many calories you're bringing in. So the nutritionists that are telling you to do that, I would question it, you know, strongly.
Well, I have friends who didn't go on a medication and just did the coconut oil, and it brought theirs up. The thing is when you have hypothyroid, your cholesterol level will go bad.
Right.
And I know because all my stats were great, perfect.
Yeah,
and it went bad. And then when I started I didn't want to take the medication, I wanted to go the natural route.
Right.
So even though my doctor didn't tell me, I went and found a nutritionist. And when I started on the coconut oil and all the stuff and eating like the Brazil nuts and the fruits that were better for it and avoiding stuff that they were saying, that I like broccoli. Broccoli was one of the things that were bad for it, unless it's cooked, because it has something in it called goitrogen that works against the function of the thyroid. That's what I was told.
No,
and I have to, and kale, like now I don't eat kale raw, I eat it when it's singed, kind of cooked, because I'm told that helps me. And my levels went back up when I got it under control. So this is really,
Right.
I really want to know.
Yeah, I mean, without looking at your numbers specifically, it'd be difficult to kind of guess. But as a few things you said, I mean, when it comes to old rules of medicine, you know, listening to friends, you don't have a lot of patience. So what happens is you really have to look at the larger studies. And the thing is that a diet that would be high in eggs and coconut oil on its own would basically lead to weight gain, because it's just like Dr. Hobday was saying, you know, X amount of calories per usage, you're going to have to really try to really push some of those stuff. As far as the increased saturated fats and dementia, there are some studies that there can be some, especially with avocados, that there may be some increase in functionality and things like that. But the diet you're talking about, a high saturated fat diet, especially in somebody who's hypothyroid, is I don't buy that at all. And then especially cruciferous vegetables are very, very good, raw, cooked, or you know, I don't like them mushy, but
No.
you know, I don't think there's any studies to support any of that stuff.
Yes, there is.
Tamara, did you want to?
there are studies out there that talks to you about goitrogenous foods. And no, the only issue I have with the coconut oil is that some coconut oil the processing is different. And so you'll find that the cold, unpressed, the better ones that is solid at room temperature would be better. And it's supposed to be clear as well. You have some that is yellow, and it may not be the best coconut oil. The only issue I have is feeding on it per se. That may be the difficulty. So it's not that it's terrible. I don't have a problem with you using coconut oil. The type of coconut oil that you choose to use is the problem. And also, the only problem, as I said, I would have is using this thing, because you would be using it. You probably be using it for frying and cooking. You don't necessarily need to use it in everything you do every day. And there is research, yes, to back up the fact that it's good for dementia, cancer, a whole host of things. There are research out there. But as I said, you have to look at the quantity that you're consuming and the amount of eggs that your dietitian tells you about. Yes, exactly. So yes, as I said, there are research out there that tells you about goitrogenous foods. So that's not the debate here. I'm only looking at the fact that if you're using coconut oil and you're saying a tablespoon, what do you use it to do? Do you drink this tablespoon of coconut oil?
She said I could put it in a smoothie, or like a shake or something, or take it by the teaspoon, or put it on a salad.
No, that may not be a big problem, but with that, you probably would still need to couple exercise, and I wouldn't use a tablespoon of coconut oil, and you need to, as I said, go back to what type of coconut oil that you're choosing to use. Okay, well, if your dietitian went shopping with you, I really don't have a problem with that. No, as it relates to eggs, we already alluded to the fact that it's not that eggs are totally bad, but if you're consuming too many eggs within the week and above the recommended allowance, you can have a problem with your cholesterol, as doctor said. So you may want to look at, are you taking in the recommended amount that you're supposed to?
So, Nita, we're out of time.
How about your triglyceride levels?
When I was first diagnosed, she could check my stats from before because I had excellent stats, and she could see where they went bad, and then they came back, and my stats were good.
So, sorry, Mita, I'm going to ask, because we're actually out of time, so I'm going to ask if we can get you guys to have a chat offline. So how about it, guys? Big round of applause for our panel. I'm just going to ask the panel to stay put for just a sec, because I do have some gifts sponsored by Kirk Freeport, of course, that I want to share with you. So this is the point in the day where we're going to go our separate ways to some different nutrition sessions. In this room, we're going, and of course the theme of our next session is nutrition in action, right? So in this room, we're going to have healthy eating at home with Maureen Cubbin and the Bon Vivant team here in the main ballroom. Next door, you're going to have farm to table.